Now that we have an API key, let's go back to Postman and store it. In order to store this API key, we're going to go ahead and create a new collection. And I'm going to call this collection OpenAI. From the collection, I will see here the option variables. I'm going to close this panel here. Let's go ahead and create a variable which we can call API key. The initial value doesn't really matter, so I'm going to write something like fix me. And in the current value, I'm going to paste the API key which I've copied from platform.openai.com. Let's go ahead and save this. The next step would be to test if our API key is working correctly by sending out a very simple request against the OpenAI API. I am here at the OpenAI official API documentation, and we'll see here on the left-hand side API reference. This is the part that is describing how the API is supposed to work. And this is something that we're going to use throughout the course because the most updated information is always available here. Of course, this documentation is something that changes a lot, so what you will see when you're watching the course can be slightly different from what I'm showing in the video. So this is why it's important to understand from where I'm getting this information, so that in case something changes, you can put one and one together and figure things on your own. Let's go ahead and get a very simple request to work. And the API has an endpoint, which is the model's endpoint. And this endpoint is very, very simple to call and gives information about all available AI models that OpenAI offers. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to copy this address. I'm going to go back to Postman and open up a new tab. This is a GET request as it says in the API documentation, so there's nothing we need to change about the HTTP request verb. And I'm going to paste this. We'll see in this case, I've introduced here an unwanted character. Whenever we are copy-pasting data, we want to make sure that we are not introducing new lines, spaces, or any other characters that we don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this from here. And now it looks much better. Let's go ahead and send this. And what we'll see here is a very typical error. It's 4.1 unauthorized. And here in the response body, we're getting a detailed message about what's going on. Essentially, this endpoint requires authorization, which we can provide through the API key. Now, currently, we haven't done this for the request, so this is why it is not working. It's absolutely expected. What we will do next is to save this request in the OpenAI collection by clicking on the Save button. I'm going to name the request Get Models. And I'm going to select the collection OpenAI. Just in case you don't initially see it, make sure that you have saved the collection. And additionally, close this again and click again on Save. It's probably a glitch if you cannot see it. So it's important that we're saving this request inside the OpenAI collection. The fact that we have saved this request inside the collection doesn't mean that this authentication problem is solved, but we can solve this at a collection level because all the requests that we'll be using actually require authentication. So I'm going to go to the collection, and just in case you've closed this tab, you can simply hover over the collection name until this ellipsis shows up. Click on it, this context menu will open up. You will see here Edit. So this will give you access to the variable that we have defined. But additionally, what we want to configure here is actually this authorization. So here, if we click on authorization, currently there's no authorization defined, but we want to select one from the list, and that is bearer token. This is what OpenAI expects from us. So the token is actually stored in a Postman variable. So I'm going to type here 2 braces. And this autocomplete will kick in, and you should see the name of the variable as you have defined it. In my case, is API key. And even if you hover over it, you'll see here the current value, which should be the same as the API key which you have copied from OpenAI. All right, let's go ahead again and click on Save. Go back to the Get Models request and hit that Send button once again. And what we're actually seeing here is a status 200 OK. And we're going to see here in the response a bunch of models and a bunch of data that we're getting back. This response is formatted as JSON, which is a format used when we are transferring data when using APIs. The model that is being used by ChatGPT is actually called GPT 3.5. So if we go ahead and search in this response, for GPT, what we will see here is one of the models available, but this is kind of like a temporary version, so this may go away. It's not considered something stable. We may use it, but it's not the most stable one. So if you search for the next occurrence, we're going to see this one, GPT-3.5-Turbo. So this is the model that we actually want to use. It's always a good idea to use this endpoint to check if the model that you want to use is actually available through the API. And if it's available here, then you know that you can use it.